This album is so incredible, like really incredible. It's super aggressive. I mean, for Sigur Ros.
Hey everybody. This week I am talking to Tigran Hamasyan, an Armenian composer and keyboardist whose work falls somewhere on the spectrum between progressive rock and jazz fusion, also pulling from the Armenian folk tradition. I'm a relatively new fan of his, but I can recommend everything that I've heard so far, including his most recent album, The Bird of a Thousand Voices. Really recommend that one. During our chat, we talk about his eclectic CD collection. And yes, this week we are doing CDs specifically, scoping out new finds at the iconic Amoeba Records, not too far from the Little Armenian neighborhood in LA. And on a musical front, everything from Egyptian music to one of my favorite bands, the post-rock band Sigur Ros. So without further ado, allow him to introduce himself. Do you remember the first album that you purchased yourself or that you owned that was yours?
Well, I remember a couple instances. Yeah, like I mentioned back in Armenia, like I remember buying, the whatever, like some of Keith Jarrett trio albums, or actually I remember buying Chick Corea's album called Change from a
Mhm.
store, which I ended up like really getting into it, learning the pieces. It's actually Chick Corea and Origin, Avishai Cohen, the bass player's band, back in the day, like in like 99. And I remember buying this record and just, putting it on and just later on spend a year just playing along and trying to transcribe. I guess I moved to LA and it was the first couple of weeks in LA. It was definitely a cultural shock, coming from Armenia, moving when I was 16 when I moved. So we also stayed in this tiny studio apartment, the whole family, crammed in Hollywood, in Little Armenia, and which is not far away from Amoeba. So I would
Yeah,
that's how I found
convenient.
out about Amoeba, like
Yeah,
literally 2 weeks into
that's
my
amazing.
yeah, coming to America,
Yeah.
Uh, and and I remember buying double album of all the Prokofiev concertos, piano concertos
Mhm.
by played by Vladimir Ashkenazy. That was something that I remember. I bought it. And I was like, oh my God, this music is insane,
Yeah.
and that I listen to that a lot, a big inspiration. But I remember buying like original, not a Russian fake copy, but
Yeah,
an
yeah.
actual,
The real deal.
original album from Amoeba and just digging into it.
This is a CD episode. So can you just like on camera just show me the two sides of your collection?
Well, the current collection in my house in Armenia is this. I have like this side of it, which is all classical music and starting from Roman times until medieval into
Yeah.
medieval times and Renaissance into contemporary classical music.
Awesome.
And the side is mainly jazz and some folk music from different parts of the world, and some a little bit of rock and pop. But yeah, all the jazz is over here.
Can you just talk to me a little bit about physical media and kind of its role in your life? Well, obviously, you've got CDs. Do you have other things that you collect too? Other mediums? Do you have vinyl? Do you have cassettes? Do you have anything else? And like, when did you first start collecting?
Well, I honestly I grew up both with vinyls and cassettes.
Okay.
Um, my father had a bunch of like mainly vinyls, but also cassettes.
Yeah.
It was the early 90s, so cassettes were, it was a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So and up until up until I would say 2000, year 2000, I was really like only listening to cassettes. I would record like I remember when I got into Armenian folk music and also classical music, I would just as I there were a couple radio channels. The DJs were incredible. I mean, there was like a lot of great music. And as soon as I would hear something that was really cool, I would just press record, and I had all these tapes from the radio. So,
Okay.
but also just buying a lot of tapes and making playlists with tapes. It was a thing, and transcribing. Actually, I spent hours and months just transcribing with the tape. I really liked that because it was all about like the finger,
Yeah.
like working the finger, just like press rewind just quickly and just loop that one
Yeah.
phrase until I got it. It was really cool. I really like that process. With the CD, it's kind of, it's okay, but it was the best for transcribing, in my opinion, the
Yeah.
cassette.
There's something
Um,
tactile you can just actually pressing the button. Do you think that sort of added to the joy of it? Like the rewinding and having to like,
yes, it was like the heavy weighted
yeah, yeah, yeah,
aspect of it.
yeah,
I guess I'm a piano player, so I like that. But then I got into CDs, I was in Armenia, so it was post-Soviet Union collapse, Armenia.
yeah,
So there's a lot of CDs that people started. Yeah, I mean they just released all these CDs that were copies, illegal copies of like Russian made illegal
yeah.
copies of a lot of famous recordings, like jazz recordings. So I would go and purchase them, and then when I moved to the US, well, every time I would travel to Europe for concerts, I would definitely bring some CDs with me, bring back some CDs, and then when I moved to the US, I really started buying more CDs, and I had a substantial collection of CDs. And I still collect. I mean, I like CDs. I like to open it up and put it, in my system and just kind of sit down. I like to read the liner notes. I like that process.
Maybe it's a
Hmm.
musician thing too. I don't like you said putting your the weighted keys kind of thing is interesting to think about. But yeah, there's something about actually putting your hands on something and it makes it feel real in a way that streaming just doesn't, I guess. I don't know. There's something about that.
Hmm.
Do you kind of agree? Just the kind of the joy of having the object makes you kind of lean into the music in a different way.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel that. I mean, just um, yeah, just looking like opening something up and just really devoting your time to this. Okay, I'm going to listen to this album. I'm going to check out this song, but read about it, who's playing. It's like everything it's like a ceremony almost.
Yeah,
And and naturally you're more concentrated. I don't know, you're more alert in some ways, yeah. But of course, there's instances where, you're just it's not, your attention span at the moment is not you're not concentrated.
yeah.
But yeah, for sure, I'm more alert when I'm listening to CDs or cassettes.
Hey, it's time to pull a record off the shelf. Let's see what happens. One of my all-time favorite shows. In fact, I was just talking with a friend about this. Maybe my favorite show of all time, Twin Peaks. And this is a reissue of the soundtrack from 2020. This is the limited edition green vinyl. Let's see, from Rhino. And I don't know if anyone has ever watched Twin Peaks who's watching this, but if you have not, please stop everything you're doing. Doesn't matter what Netflix show you're watching, whatever. It's probably all influenced by Twin Peaks anyway. Go back to the source, watch this incredible show from the very, very early 90s. In fact, I believe it is 1990. The instrumental Twin Peaks theme, first track on here, is absolutely my favorite piece of TV or film music of all time. Since you're already on YouTube, after you finish watching this, please search for the clip of Angelo discussing how he wrote this piece of music with David Lynch, the co-creator and original director of the show. It's one of my favorite videos that exists on the internet. It's really breathtaking to watch them discuss how they essentially came up with this piece of music in real time, just discussing what David was looking for in terms of the emotional impact of the show. Describes characters walking through the woods and the darkness, and it's incredible to watch David, who's not a real trained musician, who does make music of his own, just describe what he's looking for, again, in terms of pure emotion, in terms of scene, images, and Angelo translating that into melody and chords, even tonal characteristics of these settings on the keyboard that he's looking for. It's, again, I think one of the most inspiring things I've seen in terms of an artist creating something out of literally nothing. It, in a lot of ways, mirrors the scene from the Get Back Beatles documentary where Paul was basically creating the song Get Back from scratch. You'll notice I haven't even opened this. I've heard the whole thing, of course, from the show, and I believe I have a CD reissue of this somewhere, but still waiting for the right time to crack this open, probably at a party of some kind. I have a lot of Twin Peaks fans as friends, but really recommend the music from Twin Peaks. Of course, recommend the show to go along with that. But yeah, check this thing out. What is one album that you have in your physical collection that your fans wouldn't expect you to have?
Yeah, I mean, I have something. I just found it like literally 2 days ago because it was
Okay.
actually in underneath shelf of my left this classical side collection.
Yeah.
And this is my first album. It's called World Passion.
Yeah.
This label doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it was recorded in 2004 and came out in 2004. And yeah, it's I moved to the US, and after 6 months, I recorded this album with Ben Wendell is on it, Francois Moutin is on it, and Ari Honig. And there's a duduk player, Armenian woodwind player. His name is Ruben Arutunyan. I haven't, I don't even know what he's up to these days, but yeah, I just found this the other day, and it's not released. I mean, no, like you can't really
That's amazing.
buy it. Yeah, you can find maybe some copies for like really expensive copies
Yeah,
online,
yeah.
but yeah, I've found a few of them in my drawer the other
Yeah.
day, and
Luckily, you don't
it's
have to pay the exorbitant prices on
yeah.
disc for a copy of your own album. What would be the weirdest album in your collection? And you can kind of interpret that however you like. Maybe you found it in a store or something. You're like, oh, I just have to give this a try.
I have actually bunch of, well, I'm not sure if I will find it now, but I remember buying this album of 5th century Coptic music,
Hmm.
which was supposed to be the way like music, basically what maybe ancient Egyptian music sounded like. And there was like microtonal vocal music to it, like
Yeah.
also, singing. And there's a speech, like a I don't know, a 10-minute speech. I think this was recorded maybe part of the Smithsonian, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, it was weird 3-track album with this ancient Egyptian Coptic music,
Wow.
and with the ancient Egyptian instruments like sistrum. That was definitely something that I bought. I was completely blown away, but it wasn't something that I
Yeah.
expected, like a 10-minute speech about, it's like an interesting album.
Do you remember where you were when you found that? Like, were you just browsing and you just saw it and thought, what is this?
I bought it in Amoeba in LA. I used to go there a lot when I'm back in the day when I was living there, and then every
Yeah.
time I'm in LA, if I have a day off, I try to go there. Not every time I succeed, but this is my yeah, definitely love that place.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite store in general or just a favorite spot where you tend to find your best stuff?
Uh, I mean, for sure, LA Amoeba is one of the
Mhm.
greatest record stores I've ever been to,
Yeah.
music stores. But also there, I've been to some CD shops in Switzerland, in Geneva. I can't remember the name, unfortunately, but
Okay.
I've seen the most extensive classical music and Renaissance music collection I could ever imagine, like it's like Amazon search,
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like kind of crazy amount of albums they have. Specifically, I really love Renaissance music and early Renaissance music, especially like Guillaume de Machaut or like Perrotin, and so yeah, Francesco Landini, like the Italian Renaissance composers,
Yeah.
Jacopo de Bologna, anyways. But they have some incredible collection, but also like towards late Renaissance choir, vocal music as well. Like Josquin de Prez or Okehem.
Yeah.
It's in Geneva, yeah. And
Okay.
I've been there twice, and it's blown. There's one Brahms Lieder album performed by Jesse Norman
Mhm.
that I was trying to find a physical copy. And I've been to many, many record stores, and none of them had it. And I found it in that store. And I was like, all right.
They
So
passed the
the
test.
store is pretty incredible. Yeah.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about obviously your love of classical music and jazz, and then you listen to your music and it's so all over the place and it incorporates so many influences. And I was listening to your new album, like I mentioned earlier, and second to second, there's something new. It can get really, really heavy. It's obviously pulling from jazz and fusion and even progressive rock and classical. It's everything is sort of colliding at once, and it's fascinating. Has collecting informed that? You're finding this strange microtonal Egyptian things. Like, do you think the actual act of going and hunting for physical music has kind of expanded your taste and informed the music that you make?
Yes. I mean, just, the mystery and the excitement behind like buying a record, not knowing what it is, and just getting home and putting
Yeah,
it on for the first time. Um, it's a process. I like that. It's like, going to the concert, not knowing what you're gonna hear, like
yeah,
not even like sort of knowing vaguely what it is. Because I also like buying albums that I just see any information that is appealing, or I see a cover that's really appealing,
yeah,
and I buy it. And sometimes, it's really cool. Sometimes, you're a little disappointed, but it's an experience. I like that. And this journey from cassettes to vinyls and the CDs, and it's definitely enriched my musical world for sure. And I'm sure it definitely had an influence on my writing and playing.
I feel like you can tell. It's interesting to hear you talk about going in and looking at things and just buying them blind, basically, just seeing a cover. Because after a certain point, you've bought a lot of the things you already know. You kind of get to the point where yeah, I own this artist's catalog. I own this. I already know I like them. What else is out there? I try to not actually Google search on my phone. I don't look up to see anything else about it. It's
Uh-huh.
like you said, it's like going to a movie or something without watching the trailer. It's just like
Yeah, right, right.
intrigued by the poster. That's going to be interesting. So that is that how you
Mhm.
these days collect mostly? Do you just go and just buy things sort of blind and just give it a shot?
Yeah, I still do that. The past year I haven't been like actively collecting.
Hmm.
Just buying few things here and there. But yeah, that's exactly what I would do. I mean, but also sometimes for example, there's one incredible record of this piano player, Art Landy,
Yeah.
whom Art. Yeah, I've met him recently in Boulder when I played. He lives in Denver, so
Hmm.
he has this incredible record with Jan Garbarek, and so I was like, oh my God, I need to look up, Art Landis piano players' albums. So it
Yeah.
was just like I saw the records and I was like, just literally took all the records
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I know that it's gonna be, I mean, I'm gonna find something that's gonna be really great or what, and so that there are moments like that where I know kind of there's something that's going to be great if I buy this.
Yeah.
Not directly, like specifically, not hearing anything or like not knowing anything about the band or anything, but just
Mhm.
I know that this guy's album, so it's bound to be something really great.
Do you have a favorite album cover, favorite album art? Maybe something that you could show us?
Hmm. Let me see. Uh, oh, there's a really beautiful album cover. I don't know
Oh,
if you can see it, but
yeah, that's beautiful. I never know
this
how to
is
pronounce his name, but I love that guy's stuff. I've started collecting
you
him
know,
recently. Yeah,
yeah,
amazing.
Terrier Ribdal.
Yeah,
He's an incredible guitar player, and this album is unbelievable. It's called "If Mountains Could Sing." It's a nice, beautiful cover of, I guess, Norway mountains.
yeah. I'm gonna have to make note of that. I don't own that particular album, so that'll be on my
Really
list.
great. Like this cover,
Oh,
this
nice.
record,
I love
Sigur
that.
Ros.
Yes.
This album is so incredible, like really incredible. It's super aggressive. I mean, for Sigur Ros.
Yeah, that might be the they got heavy all of a sudden on that album.
Yeah, yeah. I
They
was
became a
like, man,
trio. They I think it's
I
Commander, I
like the
believe.
drawings inside,
Yeah.
but just the, the impact of this image right there is pretty heavy.
Seems to like, yeah, it matches the music somehow because it's kind of
Yeah,
ethereal and beautiful, but also scary and heavy and aggressive
yeah,
at the same
right,
time. It's like perfect.
right. And I like albums that use more documentary style photography,
Mhm.
especially something that, yeah, I mean, it's from real life. Like, and there's there's this record of, I mean, there's this photo of a wedding in Armenia,
Beautiful.
and it's during, yeah, there, it's really, really, really nice photo. It's just like
What's that album?
documenting. It's called Army Traditional Dances of Armenia. It's really,
Okay.
really cool.
I love the symmetry of the image actually with the hands kind of framing it. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. That's quite a yeah, it's a good mix. It's a good mix of albums. Yeah,
And
that's
also I have some, really favorite jazz record, like Blue
yeah.
Note covers I really love, but I can't find it right now. That Hank Sextet album with Hank's the horn and with him with the glasses, it's like
Yeah.
that album.
You mentioned the ECM label. earlier. That might have been before we got on, actually started recording, but I thought it's a good time to mention. I love the ECM covers. There's sort of a continuity between all of them because they have the just sort of, yeah, very stark and very sort of, I don't even know the art era that kind of evokes, but I love that
Right.
about them. And every time you see one of those covers, you instantly know it's kind of a genius bit of marketing too, because uh, they all just sort of have an aesthetic to them that I think it appeals to the collector in me as well. Because if I see one, I just buy it without even looking up what it is.
Right, right. So it looks so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just know it looks beautiful as an object, and I know I already like most ECM things I've ever heard. So then if I see it, I'm like, ECM, I know that's what it is, and so I just pick it up. But I will show you this because this is one of my favorite covers. This is the Mars Volta,
Oh yeah. Right.
Lost in the Comatorium, and then
Love
there's.
that album.
Are you familiar with this album?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I
I
figured you
love that
were,
album.
given your music. It
Yeah.
seems like a
Yeah.
kindred spirit to it, but this is, yeah, one of my all-time favorite covers. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk. It was awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.